Hey everybody, it's Homestead Mama here, and today what we're talking about is we're grinding up chili peppers. Now we're in New England, and we're just about to start planting into the earth, so that's why we need to get this done now. Before we go there, I'd like to thank Anastasia for taping for us today, and then we'll get right to it. So these are some chili peppers, and I store them in a dry paper bag. And I put them in a big Rubbermaid container, and they're in the dark and they're dry. We grew them last year, so all I did was set them out on a cookie sheet and let them dry. And then the reason why I store them in here is because if any humidity, because you're going to be in and out of that Rubbermaid, any humidity gets in there, that little bit, this will absorb it. So it won't cause mold on these. Why we're going to cut these up and use them in our garden? Well, like I said, we're getting ready to plant. And when you crush these up and you make a powder or a fine grind, or sometimes what you want to do is you want to take a tablespoon of the powder or grind, mix it into like a gallon of water, and then put it in your spritzer, and you spray. You can spray your plants to keep away critters, like aphids and stuff like that go after your plants. But also, too, what you do is if you spray this on the soil or you sprinkle it on the soil, the bunnies and the chipmunks and all that, they take one bite of it and they're not coming back. So you have to keep doing it. I mean, as it rains, it gets into your soil. It won't hurt your plants at all. But if you're spraying your vegetables and things like that, make sure that you wash them off really, really well before you bring them in, because you'll have chili pepper on it. But you should be washing them really well anyway because of parasites. And you don't want to get a parasite in you, because then you'd have to use black walnut to get rid of it, and that's a whole new other video. But any event, when you're working with this, just remember something. I'm sure we've all bitten into a chili pepper, or maybe we haven't because we've known the pungency of it. These are still very, very pungent. So when you're working with these, if you're sensitive, wear rubber gloves, because you're going to have to wash your hands really well after even handling them, let alone once you crush it up. And even if that is on your hands in any way, that dust, that minute dust, or even just touching them like this, it comes basically from the seed within that membrane along the side, and you wipe your eyes or anything, you'll be burning. So just be very cognizant of that. So what we're going to do today is you can grind these by hand. We do have a hand grinder because, you know, if electricity ever goes out, and we live in New England and our electricity goes out a lot, you want to have a backup plan. For a powder, I would suggest using a coffee grinder, but have two coffee grinders if you're using a coffee grinder. Have one that you work with your herbs, one that you do with your coffee. The same thing with this. This I only use for my herbs. And when you're cleaning out your coffee maker, your coffee grinder, you can use bread, an old piece of bread, and you just wipe around it, pulls up all the excess dust that you can get out, because you can't soak that, it's all one component. That's why I like using this for a lot of it, is because this I can wash out and clean and sterilize before I use the next batch. You always want to make sure in between your batches that you clean this out really, really well, whatever component you're using, because there'll be things you'll be making that are for external use, internal use, outdoor use. You don't want to cross-contamination. Again, this is not an instructional video. This is just sharing tips on what we do. That's just the advice. So I'm just going to dump these in here, and I'm going to grind them. Now before you take your cap off, make sure that you just let it come to a rest, because you've got a lot of powder in there, and they're airborne. So when you're first breathing this in, you could get a real puff of that, and it will be quite strong. And you don't want any of it going into your eyes, you know. So just make sure it's settled before you take the cap off. And then it's ground up to that level. And what you can do is just sprinkle that around. Come on, I just got a breath of that. See what I mean? Muddle one. So anyway, you sprinkle that around the sides, and it will help deter the little critters and your bugs and everything else like that. Then what I do is I store this in another paper bag, mixed chili powder, and therefore again the humidity. Okay, will not get in, and I can take it outside and just sprinkle it. When I go to put it in my hands and sprinkle it, I will be wearing rubber gloves. You can just buy like a small box at the dollar store or CVS, because that's going to be on my hands. And unless I get out of the garden, go and wash up really well, which probably is not going to happen, then I've safeguarded myself and I can just take those and put those aside. And that's all there is to it. So again, this is not instructional. Do your research. We're just sharing what works for us and how to save money, how to stay organic as we can, and what works. That's all there is to it. I got a little bit of that powder on me, so that's a good clue to back up on that. So again, I want to thank Anastasia for doing the taping for us today. Always remember, stay healthy, stay in peace, and may there always be sunshine in your life. Homesteading Mama signing out. See you next time. Oh, make sure to hit like, would you? And hit subscribe if you like what we're doing. We're just starting out, so we're trying to get up and moving on this, and feel free to share us on your multimedia, like Facebook or whatever you're using, because we're trying to get up and going. These tips that we live by really do save us. We love homesteading and think that everyone should know how to save money and what works, so that you have more money in your account to go out and do special things that you like to do that cost us money. Thanks again. See you next time.